starts in motion toward the line of scrimmage. Vadiato wants to throw across the line. Intercepted at the 31-yard line. Back. Oh, he had Noah Smith.
Forced out of the pocket. Look out. Throwing as he goes down. Leaping catch. Touchdown.
Jenkins. Back to throw. Here comes the pressure. They've got him brought down.
A new season calls for a new look. Yes, that is going to be our new logo, and it's all thanks to my man, Luke Scott. Luke, you worked pretty hard on it. It's all you, man. I just did the consulting and the inferring on it, I guess you could say.
Oh, I didn't pay you a consulting fee. That's my bad. But no, it does look pretty good. I think the letters held us over there for a little bit, but only fitting the start of the brand new football season. Go ahead and unleash the new logo.
I mean, honestly, to be honest, folks, one time we literally stared at the logo for like an hour and we hardly changed anything.
It was. Well, what do you think about this? Let me think about it.
How about?
And it
this?
was maybe like a little tweak, but no, I mean with the colors, it's all athletic code and everything, but just the layout of it, I think it looks pretty slick. I like the microphone in the middle. I think it's a nice little touch up there, and ready to roll now with it.
Yeah, and the new name tags as well.
Of course.
Yeah. Well, as you all know, folks, this is Sam Houston Sports Talk. I'm Collin Neill. That's Luke Scott. This is your home for all the Bearcat talk. If you want some more of it, be sure you hit that subscribe button. If you haven't already, turn notifications on, leave a like on this video, and comment down below your thoughts on today's edition of the Sam Houston Sports Talk podcast. This is the Sam Houston versus Rice preview as we look ahead to Saturday's matchup between the Bearcats and the Owls. Today, we are going to give our thoughts on the matchup. We also had an interview yesterday on Tuesday with Steve Helwick, a college football writer. He'll give his thoughts on Rice and his thoughts on some of the other conferences going on in college football and the parity that could ensue this season following what we all saw in Week 0. And then at the end, me and Luke Scott will give our predictions on how the Bearcats will do this season, and our conference picks. And finally, our predictions for the game against the Owls in H-Town. Luke, let's go ahead and get started. Sam Houston, just to kind of, I know people want to forget about last year, but let's just take one more look back at it one more time. 3-9 season. You won 3 of your last 4 games. You lost 5 games by 1 possession, and just a lot of heartbreak last year. But Luke, I think everyone's just ready to finally put it behind them with the start of the season on Saturday.
I think so, and the coaching staff has talked a lot about, living and learning on from last year, and you saw the progression from the very beginning against BYU all the way to the end, right? Winning those 3 of the last 4 and just playing better football in the conference and finding ways to win games instead of losing games at the very end, which that was tough. All those 1-possession games, but you saw this team really bounce back from that, learn from it, and I think this group, a very experienced bunch. A lot of these players returning from last year. A lot of experienced transfers. I think Sam Houston will be much improved and be one of the more surprising teams in all of the group of 5.
Yeah, and I think Conference USA is on a good pedestal as well, with Liberty getting that New Year's 6 bowl bid. Obviously they got blown out really badly by the Oregon Ducks, who are a college football playoff, not just like a favorite to get a bid, but one of the favorites to win the national championship this year under the leadership of Dan Lanning, former Sam Houston defensive backs coach, by the way, for those that don't know. So kind of a great little fun fact right there. But Luke, I'm excited to finally get going. So let's go ahead and look at this current squad as a whole. Overall, much more depth this year than last year. There's more talent on this team. Um, but Luke, just to kind of get to the cream of the crop, the quarterback position, and this is what Sam Houston head coach Casey Keeler had to say about the quarterback position.
Yeah, we're going to list it or nor. I mean, so we're not going to tip our hand. But I've been really pleased. It's been a battle all during spring it was, and pretty much to the end of training camp. We really haven't settled in on a guy until just recently. And I guess, again, you're going to see that, open and play the Rice game.
And, well, Luke, when the depth chart released, telling the truth, 3 oars at the QB position. Grant Gunnell, Jay Spower, Hunter Watson. Luke, how do you feel about that?
Oh, it's weird because all throughout Keeler's tenure, he's always said, run with the one quarterback, and have him not looking over his shoulder. I think the depth chart, that's kind of a smokescreen, to be honest. I just don't think he wants to put it out there right now until the game starts. That's when he wants to put his QB1 out there. But he's talked about in the past how all 3 guys are on the leadership council for this team. Of course, Gunnell was here last year, and then Bauer and Watson both transferring in. It's interesting because all 3 are very different, but Watson and Bauer are more similar to each other size-wise, but it's a very interesting seeing them put all 3 on there as QB1 pretty much. We'll see as more and the more the season's getting closer, the more I think we're thinking Hunter Watson maybe. At the beginning, we were thinking Jace Bauer. I don't know. I don't think any fans know. I think the team knows, but that's not out there yet. We'll see. If I had to pick one starting, at the first snap, I think I'm going to lean still towards Bauer, but I wouldn't pass it if we don't see Hunter Watson.
So, I mean, I caught some flack on Twitter because I did not put Gunnell as in that QB battle. I mean, I just feel like from what I've observed and from what I've watched and what I've heard, it's just been a 50-50 battle between Jace Bauer and Hunter Watson. That's not a knock on Grant Gunnell, no knock whatsoever. But you look at what kind of offense Brad Cornelson, the offensive coordinator for Sam Houston, runs. It isn't what Jace Bauer described on the Ankeny Fanatic podcast he had a month ago. It's an RPO spread offense, and I guess the 2 quarterbacks that fit that kind of offense are Jace Bauer and Hunter Watson because they both can run. And I mean, Gunnell has a good arm. That's what I've heard, but I just don't think he's the quarterback that can fit that style of play. I haven't really seen him run much. I mean, he's a guy. He's that 6'6" and 220, so probably not the best runner. While Jace Bauer and Hunter Watson are proven to be really good runners. So that's why I have always said it's a battle between Jace Bauer and Hunter Watson, and I'm gonna stick to my guns. I think we see Jace Bauer go out to that huddle before the first offensive drive for the Sam Houston Bearcats. But I think Hunter Watson can run the offense as well. I just think that Jace Bauer has the FBS experience to go out there and get it done. And they say that experience is more valuable than almost anything.
Yeah, and you talked about what Keeler said he wants his quarterback to be able to do a little bit of everything. I think the better runner is Hunter Watson. I think Bauer is a little bit more polished, throwing the ball. So it's a really tough distinction of who you want to go with. More flexibilities with Watson, but I think passing the ball, you'd rather have Bauer at this moment right now. So, yeah, we'll see. But I think the strength of this team is on the outside. It's in the skill positions, and we'll get to that. But I don't know if there's a wrong pick between those two. I wouldn't go with Gunnell. I've seen Gunnell. I don't want any part of him. Uh, no offense to Grant Gunnell, great high school player, but you know, I think I'd rather just see one of the other two.
Another position on the depth chart that has 3 players on it, the running back position. And at first I was kind of confused, but Luke, honestly, I kind of like I like the running back room right now as long as it stays healthy with Zach Bacek, John Gentry, Jay Ducker. But you also have guys behind him like DJ McKinney, Adrian Murdon, Landon Coco Brown that we mentioned before. But I think those 3 guys right there can get it done. I don't think it necessarily matters who goes out there first. I think it's just going to come down to the situation as a whole, like down in distance, where they're at on the field, and how the game is going and what kind of defense they face.
Yeah. And with the running back position, the way the whole team has evolved and football has evolved, it's running back by committee. Coach Keeler's really talked about John Gentry. He really likes what he has out of him. Ducker can do a little bit of everything, and Zach Bacek's more of your pop guy. He's a great pass catcher out of the backfield. I think that's kind of where he's going to be utilized. Some would say it's a third down back. People say different things, but it's a very deep room. At first, when I saw the 3 oars at the running back position, I was like, oh, they're not committing to one. But the more I think about the running back, I'm fine with that. The QB position's one thing, but I'm cool with the 3 different running backs. And I think all 3 provide you with something a little bit different, which I like. And you could probably run some sets with a couple of them in there, 2 backfields. I think that could be pretty cool. The good old 21 personnel. We'll see. Not that we have a fullback, not any of them's a fullback or anything, but we'll see. We'll see. I think my favorite's probably Gentry as well. He's a Houston guy. He's a Texas guy. But I've seen the most of Urbacek out of all of them, right? So, because he's been here the longest. So we'll see.
Yeah, Urbacek provides the speed, but Gentry provides the experience, and he was at Utah State before he transferred to Sam Houston last year, and he was good when he was on the field, just couldn't stay on the field consistently due to the injuries.
Yeah, and I get the concerns with Gentry being an injury guy, hurt guy. You see that, kind of everywhere. We know what he's capable of. But he can run between the tackles. He can run outside. He's got some shiftiness. He's got a good cutting ability. I think he's kind of a more do-it-all type guy. And at the same time, that's frightening because of the injury guy and what do you do without him. But the good thing is that you have those 2 guys behind him, right? You have Ducker and Urbacek, who are kind of are the more different type of backs, but do those things really well. So I think depth-wise, that's a position that we struggled with, and Coach Keeler has talked about last year. When you ran with your 5th or 6th running back last year, that won't be an issue this year, I don't think.
Looking at the tight end room, it's pretty obvious. It's going to be Elijah Sohn. Fernando Garza III was mentioned on the depth chart, but it's pretty much what we expected.
Yeah. I mean, Garza was the transfer from A&M. We know he has that ability. Sohn has been tremendous. We saw him last year. Dalton Meyer with us, he talked about him very highly. Everyone likes Elijah Sohn in this room and this team. So no real surprises there. But again, I think adding on to what Dalton Meyer said in a couple episodes ago, this is a really deep room that they love to run some 12, 13 personnel, right? Which is good. I like that. That's more old school. Running 2 or 3 tight ends out there, but when you have a guy like Sohn who can really open up the field for your quarterback, whoever it is, right? That's a huge addition to have on a team.
Sticking on the line of scrimmage, the offensive line, pretty much the same as pretty much a lot of the same guys from last year. A guy that has emerged out of nowhere, it seems like to most people, but I had my eyes on him for a while. You can back me up on that. I talked about him. Luke Erickhart, the Iowa Western transfer, so he was there with Watson when they won the national championship last year. The 6'6", 300-pound transfer looks to be at left tackle, but right now it looks like it's a battle between him and Colt Dietrich. But you kind of want that size. You want that size on that line, Luke. But my question is he gonna be athletic enough to stop the speed rushers, especially against a Rice defense that has a lot of veterans on it?
Yeah, for sure. And when you're 6'6", 300, that is that's what you want out of the tackle position. That's what scouts are looking for. He's got the measurables, and I'm pretty sure maybe they go and get Hunter Watson right from Iowa Western. Maybe he said, hey, I want this guy blocking for me. He's really good. It could just be he's a good buddy of his, or this guy's really impressed me. This is a guy you want to go get, which, that's good. And we see a lot of guys, come from the JUCO ranks and you don't know what they are, and they're awesome. They're really good ball players. I mean, the JUCO grind is a lot different than the others, right? So yeah, I'm high on him as well. Markendrick Beal, plenty of talk about him. Of course, Hagler. So we'll see. I think this O-line group has been one of scrutiny in the past few years, but I think every year has shown growth. Maybe not as much last year, just because the conference changed, and you're playing against completely different levels of competition. But I think this will be one of the more surprising outfits here for Sam, and one will be mentioned maybe one of the best on the team at the end of the year.
Yeah, and then you got James Dawn back at right guard, and you got right tackle position being fought for Grayson Jackson-Smith and Orion Irving.
I am a little hesitant on that right side. I just don't really know what we get with Don and either one of the tackles. Conflicting tape last year, it kind of looked like we saw Don get kind of manhandled at times last year, so we'll see.
And finally on the offense, probably the most exciting part, the receiver room. It looks it's just so jam packed. I mean, it looks a lot better too when you have Ife Ade coming back, and then you got guys like Quavis Humphreys as well, who's finally healthy and ready to go. Simeon Evans, who shined last year. Michael Phoenix, the second JUCO transfer from Kilgore, and guy I'm excited about, Lonnie Atkinson. He's on the 2 deep, so I'm pretty excited to see him. And what do you think of the receiver room this year, Luke? Because I really like it a lot.
Yeah, Colin, we know what we get out of this receiver core. Adeyes, they're kind of a smaller, but that's your X guy. Just a really good player on the outside. Smith being your slot guy usually, but yeah, Quavis Humphreys is the interesting one here. Simeon Evans, we saw grow, throughout the year last year, and friend of the program. He's been a really good player for us. But Quavis Humphreys is the guy that Keeler keeps talking about. Hurt guy from last year, redshirted. He was one of those guys that the measurables. I mean, the dude's 6'3", 220 something pounds, I think. That's what the depth chart said. His tape is really good. In practice and camp, he really impressed a lot of the coaches. I think he's going to be the wild card for this offensive unit, just because we haven't seen what he's going to put out there at this level yet. But we know his ability is up there, and it'll be an interesting guy to see if he can take the double off of either Ife or Noah. So that's the wild card of this unit. But the other few guys, Adeyes, Smith, and Michael Phoenix has been talked about as well with Simeon Evans. It's a really good group.
Well, that's it for the offensive side of things. So now transition to defense. Just a lot, pretty stacked group. Expected to be like last year, if not even better. I would argue, Luke, they're going to be even better this year because they got physically stronger. The conditioning is going to be a lot better. And they went in the portal and got some really good guys like Denver Warren, Isaiah Cash, and Jalen Jimerson. But to keep on the position groups, the defensive line, you got guys like Chris Murray, Javon Leon, and Matthew Rubisala, Denver Warren, like I mentioned. Looks like Javon Leon and Chris Murray are battling for a spot. What I saw at camp was that Javon Leon was the opposite edge rusher to complement Isaiah Nixon, who will be on the other side as the outside guy that will rush. But I really like Javon. I think he'll be seeing the majority of the playing time. But Chris Murray still provides a spot, a role, a place on this team. Richard Atland Jr. has been pretty impressive as well in camp. I really liked him. Quincy Wright's just he's a big guy, 6'2", 315 pounds. The sophomore from Duncanville, Texas. I mean, they put out product like crazy in South Dallas, along with DeSoto. But I think the D-line group looks really good this year, and I'm really high on Denver Warren, the New Mexico State transfer. Gonna be pretty good.
Yeah, I really like what this D-line core can do. You see kind of just throughout the entire defense, but especially in the D-line, on the edges and down the inside, it's a lot of red shirts. It's guys that have plenty of experience, and that's what the coaches wanted to do, is stack this team for this first year of bowl eligibility. In previous years, for us to be able to put our best squad out there, complete full roster, full of depth. I think this will be a position with the entire D line and front, 3 or 4, whatever they run, to substitute in masses, and you can do that when you have a good depth throughout the entire room.
Yeah, and especially this defense is under the first season for Skylar Cassidy, who was hired in the offseason from Abilene Christian. We'll get more into him in a little bit. Just moving up real quick, because this segment is running a little long. The linebacker room, it's pretty simple. No surprises here. Isaiah Nixon will be your outside guy. Kavion Gaither will be wearing the green dot. He'll be taking over that Trevor Williams position at the mic, the middle, and you have Trey Fields. Those guys are not who I'm looking at. I'm looking at the guys behind them, like Bryson Hayes, Gannon Tulos, Sincere Jackson as well. He's listed on the depth chart as well as a potential starter at linebacker. C.J. Johnson, he's a Memphis transfer. He looked pretty good as well, and Jalen Phillips as well. So it's a good mix. So it's majority familiar faces, some new guys put into the mix in there. But the linebacker room is gonna be pretty good again this year. Even with Trevor Williams no longer here.
Yeah, I think Nixon's going to be a really good player for us. Being able to rush the passer as he can, and those guys behind him. We know what Gaither brings. A WAC Defensive Player of the Year. He's going to be in contention to win Defensive Player of the Year here in the Conference USA. This is another just complete room and throughout the whole defense, really, as I just said it. But I like what we can do with this room, and the guys behind them. It's all juniors and seniors, Collin. So they've been in the program. They've been playing football for a long time.
Yeah. And finally, to cap off on the defensive side of things, the DB room. Luke, you know how high I've been on this position group, especially with guys like Davion Armstead, who is coming back after redshirting last year. David Fisher as well. I hope he can improve this year. And Emont Allen coming back. You'll see him a lot really on the punt returns in the return game. But I like him. He's a pretty athletic guy. But also Jaden Scott as well. Chanston Prox, and he's exciting as a sophomore as a whole. And Elias Escobar, Caleb Weaver as well. But I'm excited about the additions of Jalen Jimerson, Isaiah Cash, Nike Hawkins. All those names are on the depth chart. Obviously, the one that everyone's pretty high on, it seems, is Isaiah Cash, the Houston Christian transfer.
Collin, seniors, graduate transfers, juniors, redshirt juniors, redshirt seniors.
Same theme, same theme.
But that's what this team wanted to do. That's what this coaching staff, so Bobby, Coach Keeler, that's what they wanted to bring this first year, with the bowl eligibility, and you see it. Jalen Jimerson was a great player for Liberty. Now he's here. Armstead, we got a little sneak preview of him last year, and we really liked what we saw from him last year. I mean, David Fisher, Isaiah Cash. A lot of people have been talking about Isaiah Cash. It just feels like a really full squad. That you don't know. I don't know if there's a necessarily a weak point there. It's just a really good deep room.
I just wonder what kind of techniques they're going to try to do. Are they going to press the receivers more? Are they going to back off a little bit more? And I'm not really and I know, and I'm not really too familiar what Cassidy likes to run more often, whether it's a zone or a man, or obviously it's going to be different for each team they face. But each defensive coordinator is different. You can run the same scheme, but have different. You can run the same scheme, but you can have different concepts and more so what kind of strategies you want to roll out with. But I'm pretty confident in this defense. I think Skylar Cassidy is going to do a good job. The players seem to love him a lot, especially since he's a young guy, being the youngest FBS coordinator in the country.
Yeah, and that's. I think there might have just been a kind of it's just good to get some new blood.
Yeah.
There leading the defense there after a few years, because relationships, things like that, just kind of will just turn out the way they turn out. I think it was a good hire. We saw what he was able to do at Abilene Christian. Obviously, Coach Keeler really liked him. So the defense, I think, is going to be the strongest part of this team. And seeing that it's a brand new defensive coordinator, new DC, that's going to add even more anticipation just to watch him.
Yeah. And then finally, special teams, no surprises. One thing I am curious about, though, is the kicker position, because Colby Sessoms did not participate in training camp, it seems like, at least when I was there. He didn't participate in any of the scrimmages, so I'm kind of curious to see how that is. I hope that's not what I think it is, but something to keep an eye on. Jaden Cardell, obviously back at punter. Zach Stricker, the long snapper. Remember last year there was Keeler said there was a two-headed battle for the long snapper, but not again this year. Zach Stricker will be your long snapper. Cardell will be doing the holding duties. On the kick returns, it'll be Malik Phillips and Zach Rabachik, it seems like. Punt return will be Iman Allen and or Noah Smith. Again, everyone, two deep's not the end-all, be-all. They could roll out with something different, so just keep in mind of that. And I promise we will not break down a depth chart ever again. We just wanted to get our position. I just want to talk about the positions in the first depth chart because everyone was so highly anticipating the first depth chart of the season. And when those depth charts come out, that's how you know we're close to football season, baby.
That's right. That's when you know you're right on the doorstep.
Yeah.
I mean, think about the NFL roster cuts were just yesterday. Everyone's looking at their team's depth charts and checking out their roster. Same thing with college. I mean, it's just it's an exciting time, and you also want to just give your flowers a little bit to all the players, shout them out a little bit, try to pump them up before the season really gets kicked off.
Yeah, and it's not to say that the players that are not mentioned on the depth chart do not contribute to the bigger picture. Everyone has a place on the roster, no matter if it's the most well-known player or the least well-known player. Everyone has a part on a team that could either lose a lot or win a lot or just be middle of the road. Everyone has a role to play, no matter who they are, not just on the roster as a player, but also on the coaching staff. Let's go ahead and move on to just breaking down more so the Sam Houston versus Rice game. We did do a lot of Sam Houston already, so let's go ahead and look at Rice. Rice finished 6-7 last year. They did make a bowl game, but they did lose it against Texas State, who are out of the Sun Belt. Another opponent for Sam Houston this year, that in the H-Town Showdown. But Luke, I do kind of like this first matchup because I think Rice will prove to be a big test for Sam Houston right off the bat.
It's a great measuring stick game just to see where we are comparative to them. And of course, that brings in the whole group of five, that playoff spot. You want to see kind of where I would say we're a middle of the road, maybe a little bit better than a middle of the road team for the Conference USA compared to a team there in the American that's been getting better and better and better every year, literally. So under this Holmgren coach, so we'll see. I'm pretty optimistic coming into this game. I like where we are. I know Rice fans are optimistic too. They like where they are. So, the cool thing is both teams transfer QBs coming in. The start looks like going to be either of them, right? EJ Warner, son of Kurt Warner, actually, for Rice, which is pretty cool, pretty neat. So, but Rice looks like a really good team. They lost a few guys from last year. JT Daniels, a huge 5-star prospect that found his way in Rice. I don't know how he does that, but that's how it worked out. And Luke McCaffrey, he was an NFL guy, 3rd-round draft pick. So a lot of question marks there, but they bring a lot of players back too.
Here is head coach Casey Keeler on the Rice defense, the Rice as a whole, rather, I should say, when it comes to their physicality and size. And he had a pretty interesting tidbit on EJ Warner.
Rice that's their style of ball. They are big and physical. I think they go 320 across the offensive line. A couple of those D tackles are just monsters inside. Yeah, we were in the quarterback market also. And I had reached out to EJ a little late. I think he'd already, gotten pretty committed to Rice. We were going down one direction, then, some of the guys above us, kind of swooped in and took some guys that we were involved with. And we're happy with where we ended up with the quarterback situation. But I watched EJ's tape, because we were interested in trying to, encouraging him to take a look at us. And throws a really nice ball, calm in the pocket, doesn't get rattled. I know the people we know at Temple really liked him. Good leader, all those kind of things.
So Luke, Sam Houston's already pretty familiar with EJ Warner, with head coach Casey Keeler saying they were looking at him at the transfer portal. But as Casey Keeler said, he was already committed to Rice pretty much at the point they were trying to reach out to him. So that in my eyes, I kind of just thought about this now. That could be a good thing that they're already pretty much familiar with EJ Warner's game.
Yeah, in all these schools, right, they all have guys everywhere, connections everywhere. And Keeler talked about those guys that he knows at Temple. They liked him. They talked about him being a great player, a leader on this team. 23 touchdowns, 12 picks. A little high in the interceptions number there, but the ability, the bloodline, he's got it, right? He's got it. And as someone who Rice is super excited about, the JT Daniels, while he was there, he was always decent, but he was never great. They think this guy's the potential to be really, really great for him.
Well, we don't. I don't know much about Rice. I mean, I'm gonna be honest, Luke. I didn't really get into college sports until I got into Sam Houston, but I do know that Rice is trying to get back into that program that they know they can be, especially since they're still pretty new in the American Athletic Conference, the former Conference USA team, and the American looks pretty stacked this year. And the Rice just seems like they have a chip on their shoulder.
They do, and we talked about it with our interview with Steven here coming up soon after this. But he talked about their schedule this year. They have a very favorable schedule. Especially the non-con. Usually they go and play, an A&M, a Texas, Baylor, Tech, a really big school. This year they don't. They play Texas Southern after us. All three of their non-cons are here in Texas. So from their scheduling point of view, they seem to have a pretty favorable schedule to be a team, that can win 7 or 8 games maybe in the American. Of course, they lost SMU in that one, which is the big loss there for them. But this is a team that a lot of people have their eyes on in the American Conference to be kind of one of those wild card teams that, hey, they might be able to beat anybody. They might lose anybody, but they could beat anybody.
Well, that sounds like it is a good time to segue to our next segment. Here is our interview with Steve Helwick. All right, welcome to the second part of the preview podcast as we look ahead towards Sam Houston taking on the Rice Owls. We welcome in Steve Helwick. He is a college football writer for Underdog Fantasy on SB Nation. Steve, welcome on in, and I gotta say, man, college football is back. We've seen a lot of chaos in week 0, and I just kind of want to get your perspective first. How do you think this college football season will go, especially with the new 12-team playoff?
It's exciting, and I don't think we could have had a better start in week 0. I've looked at the past week 0 results before, and we've had so many lopsided games, but we had 4 underdogs cover the spread, some unexpected results with SMU barely scraping by Nevada, Georgia Tech getting that win over a top 10 Florida State and Ireland. So far, the theme of the year is parity. Everyone wants a year like 2007 where there's just an upset every single week and the top 10 just constantly change. And this year, there's more margin for error for those teams with the 12-team playoff, so I think it's going to be an interesting year. And I think the most interesting part is the more access to the playoff. You're going to have teams like Penn State and Oregon last year that couldn't really win the conference, but were still up there in the conversation. They'll be in that playoff picture, as will a team from maybe the AAC or the CUSA in Liberty's case would have made it last year. So increased access is going to be one fun part of this season.
Yeah, so when we talk about the playoff, obviously all these teams that have been knocking on the door for so long, like a Penn State, right, that just haven't been able to get through. Do you think this is the year that they could even, win it all this year, or you still think, in large part, it's still, it's the Georgias of the world, Ohio State's, it's their, trophy to lose?
Crazy enough, I actually think the 12-team playoff favors the top of the top more. The Georgias, the Alabamas, the Ohio States. I think Oregon has kind of gone into that echelon this year because in the past, you make a 14 playoff, all you have to win is 2 games. Now you have to win a lot more games. If you're one of the top 4 seed, you still have to win 3 games. And if you're one of the seeds 5 through 12, you have to win 4. So I think that it's a lot tougher for some teams that maybe would have snuck into the playoffs. So I think a team like 2021 Cincinnati or 2015 Michigan State, some of those playoff teams actually benefited under the old model more, where they had to win fewer games and just had to have a good regular season to qualify.
Well, a lot of the rest of the team's journey to potentially being in the 12-team CFP this year starts this week. For Sam Houston and Rice, starts this Saturday. Steve Helwick, by the way, joining us here on Sam Houston Sports Talk. So, Steve, just diving into Rice. Last year they were a bowl team, and they're still trying to adapt it in a new conference, the American. Just what can you say about Rice and how they look to be this year?
They're getting incrementally better and better each year, and that's why Mike Bloomgren stayed so far. Even though he hasn't produced a winning record, it's clear that Rice is making progress and they're far better product than they were 6 years ago when he was there year 1 at the helm. So Rice finally made a bowl with 6 wins last year. They made a bowl on a stipulation in 2022 just due to their academic progress rating with 5 wins. But last year they earned it with 6 wins, and they seem to be a far improved team. And this year, one thing I like about Rice is the defense returns 20 of its top 22 guys on the 2 deep in the depth chart. So that continuity makes it easier for installs, and it makes the learning process go a lot quicker in the spring as you're not introducing as many backups to the lineup or as many transfers, as Rice isn't really a portal heavy team that goes either way. They return all 3 coordinators, so that's another thing of continuity that really helps. And then one thing to know about Rice on offense this year is that is one position where they did address through the portal was quarterback. They did it in the previous year with JT Daniels, who really took Rice to another level and led them to a pretty spectacular 2023 comparative to their past seasons. And I think that they have another great quarterback this year in EJ Warner, who comes from Temple, had back-to-back 3,000 seasons. I think he has better pieces around him at Rice, and I think that the Owls can run it back this year. And I think their over under win total in Vegas is 6.5, which would be that's more wins that they've had in a single season since 2014. So the expectations are higher than ever.
Yeah, so looking at Rice's defense, we were all in the press conference today, which was Tuesday, with Keeler. He talked about the size and the physicality of Rice. That's also, I mean, that's been a huge thing for Rice, through the whole Bloomgren situation. His whole tenure there, they've gotten better and better with that standing. How do you see that playing out against Sam Houston, which last year seemed to get a lot better throughout the season with the bigger and stronger guys in the FBS?
Yeah, Sam Houston definitely made progress last year. At the beginning of the year, their offense couldn't really register first downs against Air Force and BYU. But after that Houston game, everything clicked with Sam Houston. So Rice's defense is definitely going to go up against a test, I think, on Saturday. But Rice is pretty well equipped to handle it because of just some of the experience they have and the way these guys have played together for years. You look at the linebacking core, Myron Morrison, Josh Piercy, these guys have been there since the pandemic season. Chris Conti, he's been on the team for 3-4 years after transferring from Rutgers, and these are guys that have logged plenty of starts over their time here. Secondary, you have Gabe Taylor. He's been there since 2020. You have Sean Fresh. He's also been there since 2020 as cornerback. So there's so many guys throughout the unit that have played at Rice for 4 or 5 years. So these are adults. These are 22, 23-year-olds taking the field, and they're improving season by season. Mike Bloomgren said this is a more player-led group before, where the players will coach each other up. They'll fix mistakes in practice, and that makes his job easier because there's a standard. They all know what to do by now, and they're all super experienced in college football, and that's going to take him to another level this year. I mean, the defense only finished last year 83rd in scoring defense, only held 3 opponents under 20 points. So yes, there's definitely room for margin. There's margin for improvement, but I think that this Rice team really can hone down on it with the amount of experience that they have.
With that as well, what other parts of the team for Rice that are you looking for them to hopefully improve upon, and what could possibly get them in trouble against Sam Houston this Saturday?
I think the offensive line has a few moving parts on it, and I think that's one thing that could get them in trouble. I mean, Sam Houston last year, they weren't a premier pass rush, but they were solid on almost all areas of the defense. You lose Trevor Williams, which is such a huge loss because he was everywhere on that defense last year, but I still like some of their pieces on defense, like Kavian Gaither. So I think that Sam Houston does have the tools to kind of penetrate the Rice offensive line because Rice does lose several starters on that unit. Lavelle Dumont, he's out for the season and joining in the coaching staff this year. So there's going to be some guys that Rice has to replace, and they can't afford pre-snap penalties or missed blocks because one person misses something on the offensive line, the whole unit looks bad. So I think that's one area of caution that you'd have to approach with Rice. And also, they don't have, as of at the moment, they don't have a true number one playmaking receiver. Luke McCaffrey was the first draft pick under Mike Bloomgren last year, going in the 3rd round to the Commanders. And McCaffrey was so instrumental in so many games. He single-handedly won them that Houston Cougars game last year. And McCaffrey with contested catches, they were all his. He had a knack for getting open, and I don't know if they have a receiver right now that can just burn coverage consistently like that. So you have a lot of guys with some experience, Rawson McNeil, Landon Ransom goals, but they need somebody to emerge as that true offensive star that can get past the Sam Houston secondary and make the passing offense look great under EJ Warner.
Yeah. So obviously, they lose JT Daniels, Rice. JT Daniels was a guy that was kind of a traveler, a huge prospect, never really turned out to be what everyone thought he could be, but still a really good player for Rice. Then they bring in EJ Warner. Now, obviously, the Warner name, NFL bloodline with Kurt Warner. What kind of have you seen from him at Temple, up in the Philly area? I mean, where does he fit? Is he a good scheme fit for this offense?
Yeah, I think so. And that was actually one of the reasons he chose Rice. He didn't really have too many connections with the university before. Like JT Daniels, he was recruited by Bloomgren when Bloomgren was at Stanford. So when he was a five-star recruit who committed to USC. So there was already a connection there. But EJ Warner really wanted an offense with a pro style that suits him. And Rice's offense has a lot of that pro style, a lot of complexities. It's not one of those spread traditional air raid offenses, which are a little more simplified for the quarterback. So there's a lot more there's a lot more complexity in the offense, and Warner's acknowledged that. And he thinks that's going to help him a lot as he embarks on an NFL career, just like his Hall of Fame father did. So I think that scheme's really well fitting for Warner. All his teammates refer to him as just a film junkie, somebody who's going to stay after practice super late, work on every part of his game, kind of obsessive about just improving in the game of football. So I think Warner's a great scheme fit this year, and he was a pretty good quarterback at Temple. You look what he did in the last 4 games of 2021. He was a regular 300, 400-yard passer. So I think that Warner's going to be a good fit, and I don't think there's going to be too much of a drop off, if any, from JT Daniels.
What other parts of Rice that you like that is not really been talked about enough? Just not just on here, but like also out of the outside the football circles.
Uh, just We haven't talked too much about Dean Connors yet, and Dean Connors is a running back who Mike Bloomgren refers to as the fifth McCaffrey brother. He was really close with Luke in his time there. He was just nominated a team captain, and he's really the team leader that the offense looks up to. He wasn't too utilized when he first got on campus as a running back in 2022, but Connors really upped his production last year, not just as a rusher with 771 yards, averaging over 6 yards a carry, but as a receiver. He had 43 receptions, which was second on the team to Luke McCaffrey. So he's somebody who's going to star both in the running game and the passing game. And he's their leading returning receiver to the roster. I said earlier that they need a receiver to emerge, but Dean Connors is going to be there on just dump offs, and he really knows how to make a couple moves, get upfield, and I think he's a star running back that has all AAC potential this year.
I've heard you talking a little bit of spread. 10-point favorites, Rice's, uh, non-biased, kind of where do you lean on that?
I have a preview that's going to come out soon. I think I put my score in the preview as Rice 28, Sam Houston 20. I think that Sam Houston keeps this game close throughout most of the game. And if you watched Sam Houston last year, almost all their games came down to the wire. And I can understand Bearcats fans' frustration because it felt like they were inventing new ways to lose each week. Well, the goal line game against Liberty, letting Jack State and FIU have those late possessions. So I think that Sam Houston's going to really pull out every punch the first 3 quarters, and this will come down to fourth quarter execution. Sam Houston did get better at that down the stretch last year, and I think that's going to help. But I think the continuity Rice has and some of the talent that the Owls have, more of certainty at quarterback at EJ Warner than Sam Houston, which Sam Houston won't declare a starter, and they said there's 3 guys still in the mix. I like Rice's assertiveness there. I think having Dean Connors, he's going to be a game changer, probably the best offensive player in this game. And I think just Rice's defense overall, I think it's going to be a low scoring defensive game. And I think Rice's defense is just going to record a few extra stops.
And you think Rice can be a bowl team? Should think they're going to be over the 6.5?
Yes. And I think that Rice's non-conference schedule is super favorable for that to happen. The last few years, they've opened up at Arkansas, at USC, at Texas as double-digit underdogs. This is their first chance to start 1-0 since 2018, where they usually just go to a bye game as double-digit underdogs. So I think that the schedule favors up nicely with Rice. They have Sam Houston, an FCS team, UConn, and Houston, and they beat Houston last year. So the non-conference schedule shapes up nice. So if you get 3-4 wins there, just have to finish 500 in AAC play, which I think they can do with their returning talent and the fact that the AAC is very top heavy with Memphis, UTSA, Tulane, but I don't think there's not much ground in the middle, and I think Rice can really emerge as one of those teams.
Steve Helwick joining us on Sammy Sports Talk. A couple more questions from me. You covered the MAC last year, correct? As well. What so you got to see a bit of Jace Bauer. You know a little bit about Jace Bauer, and he's in the mix of that three quarterback battle that's going on in Huntsville, Texas. Just since you saw Jace Bauer and you've kept up with the MAC, just what do you think of Bauer's ability to potentially be the starting quarterback and what he can do for Sam Houston this year?
I think he might win the job. He started most of the season last year for Central Michigan, 9-game starter. And I know Casey Keeler really wants a running back that can do damage with his legs, which is, I think, one reason why they chose Shoemaker over Gunnell last year. So, Bauer has a chance to do that. He's had 3 100-yard rushing games in the past. He was instrumental in leading that win for Central Michigan over NIU last year with over 100 yards in that game alone rushing. And he's not somebody who's going to slice up defenses with 300 passing yards a game. I don't think he's ever hit that threshold in his career. But I think with some of the receiver talent that he has around him, like Noah Smith and Ife, who's back from injury, I think that he could improve this year as a passer and be that number one guy. But he's a gritty, tough quarterback, tough runner, and not the fastest guy, 6'2", 220, but he's someone who can just fight for some of those extra yards, and he's very crafty with his running ability. And I think that Bauer can be the true number one to replace Shoemaker this year.
Before we end it here, just any final thoughts, just anything you would like to say heading into not just Sam Houston versus Rice, but just a whole new beginning to a new college football season that's bound to have, like you said, a lot of parity.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's exciting across a lot of conferences this year. AAC and CUSA are certainly interesting ones just because playoff access has increased, and there was kind of a little rivalry between the conferences at the end of last year where you're arguing SMU's stronger non-conference slate or Liberty's undefeated record, which one held more weight as both of those teams were qualifying for a New Year Six. And this year, rather than New Year Six, that question is going to be which one's going to qualify for a playoff bid in most likelihood. So I think that's one thing interesting to watch this year. And if the CUSA can win some of these games, like Sam Houston over Rice, that would be a big advantage for whoever the CUSA champion is, whether it's the favor Liberty, whether it's WKU, Jack State, or if Sam Houston can turn some of those close losses into wins last year, where they were, you could say, 5 plays away from 8-4. So I think that this one is a big win for both teams. AAC and CUSA both need to set the tone early in the season, and Rice needs to take care of their business as favorites, and Sam Houston needs to prove the CUSA's merit.
I got one more question, Colin. So you talk about that. Of course, a lot of teams, a lot of leagues, you root for the team that's in your league. Do you think that's even more relevant today now, especially with the group of 5 teams, that you're rooting hard for the teams in your conference, especially with in the non-conference? But you want your league to be as good as anybody's. That one spot is up for five different conferences. Is that more of a factor this year than it's ever been before?
I think so. And I think it's especially in this era of realignment where teams don't really know what the future of their conferences is. I think it is more beneficial to root for your conference now. I mean, it doesn't all really apply, I feel like, to Big Ten SEC teams. Like if you're a Michigan fan, you can root for your Ohio State to lose and vice versa because that's not going to really harm the reputation of the conference, considering where the SEC and the Big Ten are in terms of media revenue, brand recognition, all of that. So I don't think SEC and Big Ten fans really need to worry if their teams are dropping these non-conference games. But for some of the other conferences, yeah, you want to root for your conference. If you're a Washington State fan, you want to root for Oregon State to win every single game this year, except for when you play the week before Thanksgiving. And the same goes for Oregon State fans for Washington State. So I do think that fans should be supporting their conference mates this year because, I mean, how do you rank conferences? You do it based on how they do outside of conference play. And that's the best barometer you get because when you're playing 8, 9 conference games, all you're playing is each other and you're just reshuffling the order within your own league.
Steve Helwick, thank you for joining us, my man. Everyone that is watching and listening, you could follow him on Twitter. It just went away from me. There it is. Steve, it's gonna be S_Helwick on Twitter/X. You can also find his work on the Mac if that's your thing on the Hustle Belt. He also covers Rice, Houston, AAC, Conference USA for Underdog Dynasty on SB Nation, and he's an NBA fanatic, so he may say a few things about the NBA if you ever have a question for him. But Steve, thank you for joining us, my man. And of course, and if y'all didn't catch that as well, all the socials, it will also be in the description. Coming up next, me and Luke Scott will wrap up this preview podcast for Sam Houston versus Rice. We will drop our predictions on not just the game, but how the season will go. Stay tuned. Once again, thank you to Steve Helwick for joining us here on Sam Houston Sports Talk. To wrap things up, Luke, it is time for the ever-loving world of speculation. Experts, non-experts can put their predictions, and most of the time they have no repercussions whatsoever, except go viral a few times on the internet, depending on what kind of takes they say. But it is time to delve into the world of the unknown prediction. Here we go. Luke, let's start off with, we're going to give you all a couple predictions actually before we get right into it. We're going to give you our predictions for the game, how Sam Houston is going to do the season, and our conference picks. So Luke, let's get started. Sam Houston versus Rice. What is your prediction? Go.
Collin, I look at these two teams. I think there's a little bit more familiarity with Rice coming into the season, even though with some big losses. Their defense seems to be super strong, super physical, big, fast. I think that's going to be where Rice has an edge on us coming into this game. I think it's going to be maybe a little bit lower scoring than people may want, but you also never know. I mean, we don't even know who's the starting quarterback for us coming into the game, right? So it could be Bauer, Watson, or Gunnell, right? So from that point, it's tough, but I think I'm going to concur with Steve here. I think Rice is going to win this game. I'm going to go 28-24.
Well, I'm just gonna be different because I think it's pretty. Because I think I'm the coolest person ever, and well, not necessarily, but you know, it is really tough, Luke, to say right now because we don't know who the quarterback is. I think it's gonna be a toss-up game. I think it's gonna be. I think Sam Houston is gonna cover that spread of 10.5. It could change, of course, up until kickoff. I'm gonna say
Yeah, right. It's at 10 now.
It's 10.
Gone down even more.
Yes, it's gone down anymore. So the public loves Sam Houston, and you know what? I love Sam Houston as well as being an alumni, as you know. So I'm biased. So I'm gonna go 24-21 Sam Houston. It's gonna be a low-scoring game as well. I think it's just gonna be a good old chess match. One thing that Steve did say is that offensive line is a weak part of that Rice offense. So if our D-line can penetrate the trenches and win that battle down there, it's gonna make life a living hell for EJ Warner and the Rice offense. So I think the defense is gonna be a big factor. But that offense, Luke, they have to try to stay on the field as long as they can. It cannot be a repeat of last year where that offense was constantly off the field in 4 plays or less.
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, it's very self-explanatory, but your offense has to be on the field more than it was last year. We saw the defense just get worn out really in the middle and to the tail end of the season. I mean, you could see a lot of mileage right on those legs.
Yeah.
I think this offense will do a much better job staying on the turf there for us, and with having the ball. I think we're going to see a few scores in this game for us, which would be nice early. We'll see. Weather could be an issue. That is one thing on the weekend, kind of throughout Texas. There are showers, kind of, I think, to be around everywhere a little bit. So that could be an issue if it's a rainy day. I could say it's more of a 21-17 type game, 2017 type game. If it's not, I think you could see a few more scores. So, from that standpoint, it's not a thing that's going to be super unpredictable like that. With winds, like we saw those, it was like a 50-mile-per-hour winds in Hawaii this past Saturday, and which was pretty nuts. But it's not going to be anything like that. But weather could be an issue here.
Yeah, and it's up to the team who can adapt to it. Who can adapt to it better. So, but
Of course, we're filming this on Wednesday, right? And Texas
yes.
weather is never know.
Don't get me started, especially since I live in South Houston. So, but one game, Luke, does not always determine how a season will go. This is, of course, just the opening game to the 2024 season. Where do you see the Bearcats finish overall in the season?
It's a great question. I think in the non-con, I think we can win against Hawaii. I think we also could win against Rice. Like, I'm not saying we're definitely going to lose against Rice. I think this is a very winnable game. You say you think we can win. You're going to predict a win. And in the conference schedule, I think we can be anywhere. I think I'm going to say 7-5. I think 6-6, 7-5. I think that's where I'll be.
Oh, okay. There we go. Luke is predicting a bowl season.
I think this team can be very surprising.
Yeah, I think so too. You read my mind. I think we're gonna be somewhere around 6-6 and 7-5. If I were to pick just one, I'm gonna be a little bit. I'm gonna tone back the optimism a little bit and say 6-6. There's a lot of toss-up games. The 3 toss-up games, in my opinion, are Rice, Texas State, mainly because it's a rivalry game, and UTEP. I think those are the toss-up games right there. Gotta be careful though against FIU. Gotta be careful against Western Kentucky, Liberty, Jack State. They're kind of a dark horse to win the conference in my opinion. But I think we'll finish 6-6 and win our first bowl game since the 60s or 50s. I can't remember. We were in the Refrigerator Bowl one time against Middle Tennessee. Fun fact, if for those that didn't know, that bowl games did indeed exist back in the 50s and 60s.
Collin, I think the most interesting game in this year, I think it's going to be the last game against Liberty.
Yeah.
November 29th. On a Friday afternoon. Colin, it's a very interesting game. Of course, last year we know what Liberty is. We know what they're returning. That could be a game where we're fighting for bowl eligibility right there, and it's your last home game. So I think this season's going to be coming down to the end of the wire, and we're going to be on that bubble of the bowl teams.
Yeah. Well. That's a good. Well, let's segue right to our very last segment. It's going to be our conference picks and a lot of tough decisions we had to make. Let's first start with the AAC, the American Athletic. Memphis has been is a favorite in this conference to win it, but I'm sticking with the Roadrunners of UTSA. I like what head coach Jeff Traylor is doing over there, so I'm running with the Roadrunners. Give me UTSA.
I'm rolling with UTSA as well, Colin. I wish we weren't going with the same team there right off the bat, but Jeff Traylor's been a great coach. UTSA has retained guys from years past that it seemed like they've been there forever. They returned a lot offensively and defensively. I think this year in a weakened American Athletic Conference, I think the UTSA Roadrunners will be a really good team to watch out for. They could be right there fighting for the Group of 5 bid too.
Going into the the Atlantic Coast Conference. This is a tough one, Luke, and it's kind of unfair we're doing this right now because there was already an ACC. There was already 3 ACC teams that were already in action for Week 0. Florida State, number 10 ranked team in the country, lost to an unranked Georgia Tech, the Yellow Jackets, and SMU just barely pulled out a win against Nevada. For them, I'm gonna go. This is kind of. I don't think a lot of people are gonna like this pick at all, but it's mainly because it's so tough. I don't think you're gonna like this as well, Luke, but give me Dabo Swinney and the Clemson Tigers.
Good old Dabo.
Yeah.
Well, Dabo, say what you want about him. He's a great coach. They've been really good national champions, bunch of NFL guys.
Yes.
Clemson, it feels kind of like a wash pick there, Colin. I don't know if you're just rolling with the favorite there, but just cause, but it's not a bad pick.
Well, then who's your pick then?
Mine came kind of out of nowhere. Mine's out of left field.
Oh, let me guess. Was Clemson your pick as well?
No, it was not.
Okay, all right.
I've kind of looked at Clemson. I thought about them. Cade Klubnik, a guy out of the Austin area. I'm very familiar with him. He's been not necessarily a disappointment, but he just hasn't been as good as they all thought he was going to be there. Miami has a lot of questions with them. Mario Cristobal's a great coach. What we think is going to be a really good coach there. Cam Ward, a UIW guy, went to Washington State. We saw him play Sam Houston. Sam Houston actually beat Cam Ward for the record, but in a great game. That was a great game, that first playoff round.
Yeah.
What was that, 20?
It was
21?
It was 20. It was technically 2021, 2022 season. Yeah.
Yeah. My pick is I'm gonna go with the Virginia Tech Hokies.
Ooh, they were my second. They were my second. Pick. I do. It's such a great college football atmosphere. Very intimidating. I hope to experience that one day. Let's move on to the Big Ten.
Can I give my at least reason for?
Oh yeah, you know what? That's my bad. Go ahead.
You talked about the atmosphere. Blacksburg is a very cool spot. It looks like, but also Kyron Drones. He's a quarterback, a dual threat guy. He's from Baylor. Actually, when he got beat out at Baylor unfairly, I think they made a mistake on that one. Now he's at Virginia Tech. I think there's a little too much hype around Virginia Tech, which kind of scares me a little bit in the ACC. They seem kind of more of a popular dark horse, but I'm rolling with them just because.
I'm just going to leave that part in where I just completely was going to pass over you not giving your reason. So I'm going to leave that in there because that's what we're all about. We're about just just having a great time. Let's move on now to the Big Ten finally. Luke, I'll let you go with your prediction first.
Colin, you went watch there with the ACC. I'm going to watch the Big Ten. I'm going with Ohio State. Egbuka, Trayvon Henderson. I mean, guys, Coach Ryan Day. I don't think Michigan's going to be that good this year. And every year I buy into the Penn State. This might be the year Penn State can beat both of them. Penn State's actual schedule is very good. I think they avoid both Ohio State and Michigan with the new teams coming in. They're getting away with the divisions. I'm pretty sure they avoid both of them. So the Penn State pick is a good pick, but I'm just rolling with Ohio State. I think they have the best team.
Yeah, Luke, and I agree with you. I mean, you just forgot to mention one person, and that's the Kansas State transfer, Will Howard, and he did so well at Kansas State, got them ranked. I mean, Kansas State lost a couple of close games. I mean, Howard's going to be known as the guy that, I believe he slipped or something against Texas when he was trying to scramble, and when Kansas State was really close to upsetting Texas, and they could have been the reason that Texas didn't make the college football playoff this past season. But Howard just couldn't find somebody, and he just got swarmed by the Texas defensive line that was really good last year. But yeah, I'm going with the Buckeyes, and you made my another point that I was going to make too. I don't think Michigan's going to be that good this year. I think they're finally going to get over that hump because Michigan's been that hump for them for the past few years.
So you're not buying into Oregon?
No, I don't. Here's the thing: we kind of talked about this off the year, but we can kind of bring it in. Can you look at last year, Luke, and be honest with me? When it comes to the talent, when it comes to the football talent between the Pac-12 and the Big Ten, who are you holding up more highly?
Right, the Big Ten.
Yes, and I think it's going to take Oregon maybe a year to adjust to the competition as well as Washington. I just, and those are the two big ones, obviously. I just don't really buy into Oregon right now, and that's no disrespect to what they did last year because they were a really good team last year overall. Dan Lanning is leading those Ducks to greatness, and I just don't think it's this year. A lot of people are high on Oregon. I'm just hesitant because of them not just adjusting to the strength of the Big Ten, but also the traveling, which I think both them and Washington are gonna have to really try to adjust to, because that travel is insane. Doesn't Oregon or Washington play Rutgers this year?
I don't know if they play Rutgers. I do know Rutgers does play UCLA, I think, or USC, which that will be the longest travel. Rutgers, actually, interesting you bring them up. I think they're going to be one of the more surprising teams in the Big Ten.
I think
they return.
Yeah, I think they'll be a bold
They return
team.
a lot. They have the whole Sopranos intro going on. The Rutgers Scarlet Knights. I like Rutgers. They're fun.
Diving back into the group of 5, Conference USA. Or actually, never mind. I just totally skipped over the Big 12. Excuse me. Probably one of the most storied, if not the most storied, conference in college football, the Big 12. I'm going with the new one, the new bloods. I'm going with the Utah Utes. I do like what they're building over there. I don't think they'll have the same issue as Oregon will have with the Big 10. Or Washington with the Big Ten. Give me the Utah Utes. Salt Lake City, really beautiful city. Went there last year. Awesome. So a little bias. A little bit bias.
A little bit of bias there. You just brought the point of Utah or of Oregon trying to kind of adapt to the Big Ten. I'm going to buy into that a little bit with Utah. I think Utah is getting a little too much praise coming into the Big 12. We know what they can do. Utah and a night game, that might be the toughest place to play in the country. They're just so good at night in Salt Lake. But I'm not going to roll with them. I'm going to roll with the Oklahoma State Cowboys.
Okay.
Mike Gundy has been one of the most consistent coaches in the league every year. He's fine. He's getting Oklahoma State to feels like a Big 12 title game or another 9-win, 10-win season. They have a really good running back, might be the best in the country, in Ollie Gordon. Had to check his name right there. Ollie Gordon, great player. Had some issues, I think, with the law this year. Possibly, I think they talked about that. That was kind of a storyline there. Regardless, great player. Oklahoma State team to watch out for.
Yeah, and you really love their quarterback, Alan Bowman.
Never. I pick Oklahoma. No. Alan Bowman's he's been around for a long time, so I think he'll be one of those guys. Now, is he the best quarterback in the Big 12? I don't think so. But I think when you look at the defense, the complete team, I'm going to say Oklahoma State.
Now,
also a very underrated place to play.
Yeah. Now going to the Conference USA. I don't know. I don't have a surefire guy or a surefire team. Yes, yeah. Let's go Sam Houston. Yeah, we're gonna go.
Houston.
We're gonna go undefeated. We're gonna get that group of 5 spot. But if we're being trying to be as non-biased as possible, I'm going with the Hilltoppers. Give me Western Kentucky.
Wow. So I have Liberty. Why do you think WKU?
I think they just got better this year. You know, TJ Finley, I think is going to be really good for them. He wasn't that bad. Unfortunately for me, I probably should have done much more research, but from what the beat outlets say, from what people that have said that do cover Western Kentucky, this team has gotten much better, and they're coming off of a interesting season, especially in probably the most exciting bowl game of the bowl season when they had to come back against Old Dominion. Really great, really great game that was. That was awesome, especially a Conference USA team sticking it to a Sun Belt team. But yeah, I just like Western Kentucky. I just don't know if Liberty has it in them to repeat.
I'm rolling with Liberty. They just returned so many guys. Salter, the running back Quentin Cooley, Collin. It's tough for me not to say Liberty. I want to say Jacksonville State. as a dark horse. I know they've been getting a lot of praise here in the preseason, but I think Liberty is just going to be on top this year.
Let's now go to everyone's favorite conference, the MAC, baby. And Luke, since this is your favorite conference, I'll let you have first pick on this one.
Well, Steve picked Bowling Green, right? And we kind of talked about that off the camera. He liked Bowling Green. I like Bowling Green too, but I'm not rolling with them. I am a loyal Miami, Ohio fan. I am always rocking with the Red Hawks. Do I know that much about them? Not really. I know Toledo lost their quarterback, DeQuan Finn. He went to Baylor. He was really fun. I'm just looking at Miami, Ohio. Now, the thing about that is that there hasn't been a repeat champion in forever in the MAC. So we'll see. They were the champions last year. I know Western Michigan's been getting some talks about. Northern Illinois has been getting talked about. I'm rolling with the Red Hawks, though.
Well, it was a toss-up for me between two teams, but I'm going with the Broncos, baby. I don't know much about them, but I just love their colors and I love their mascot. So give me Western Michigan, baby.
That's actually a really integral part of the MAC, just rooting for the color games. Because there's a lot of all over the place.
You got the green with the Ohio Bobcats, and you got Kent State in there. You got
they have a mixture of everything
in
that conference.
It's a really good color conference. Moving on to the mountains to the west. Yes, the Mountain West. That's why they call it the Mountain West Conference. Actually, we're gonna kind of blend this in together, Luke. The Mountain West and the Pac-2, because Washington State and Oregon State are still technically the Pac-12. But they're going to be facing off against, I believe they're facing all the Mountain West teams. I haven't looked at their schedules, but
they're not playing in the conference championship game, will they?
No. It's just we do have to take into consideration that Wazoo and Oregon State are playing against the Mountain West. Kind of. I don't know. I'm just kind of probably overthinking this a little bit. But Luke, who's your pick for the Mountain West? Which you've said before, it's a bit of an up and down conference. Like they have the potential. But they just seem to underperform.
The Mountain West is an interesting conference because there's a lot of players that come out of the Mountain West that are really good. There's also just a lot of chaos in there.
Yep.
We saw a Mountain West team last year in Air Force running the triple option. They for a long time. Now they're running more of like a spread look. I'm running with the go-go offense. I'm going to roll with the UNLV Rebels there in Vegas. I was thinking about Boise State. They had that 5-star quarterback there, Malachi Nelson, but he got beat out.
Yeah.
For some other guy.
That's concerning, though.
It is. It's a little. Boise State's just kind of a little too uncomfortable for me. I'm going to roll with, I think they're the second favorite, actually, UNLV is. So I'm just going to roll with the Rebels.
I'm going to go with the Rams of Colorado State. They had a tough year last year. A lot of heartbreaking losses. The most famous one being the game-winning field goal that Hawaii put on them as time expired. Personally, my favorite highlight of last year's college football season. But you have Braden Fowler. I can't pronounce that last part of his last name for the life of me. Nicolosi. Braden Fowler Nicolosi. I think he's going to be pretty good. And you have Coach Norvell out there as well. I think they're going to be really good this year. I think they're going to finally get over the hump. They're going to surprise a lot of people. I don't know if they can be in the CFP, but I think they can make some noise. So I'm going to go with the Rams.
Ricky White is a name to watch out for. He's the receiver for UNLV. Collin, huge NFL prospect.
Yeah.
Just a name to look out for.
Moving on to the Pac-2. Not really much to discuss. 50-50 right here. I'm going with the Beavers.
Okay, I'll just roll with the Cougars just because.
Oh, come on, man. Don't know much about Oregon State, but I just like the colors. Go Beavers. And two more conferences to go, and we'll wrap this up. Final Power Conference, SEC. I'm going with Georgia on this one.
Yeah, I'm with it. Carson Beck, I think is a player. I think he's going to probably go down as the best quarterback in college football this year. The defense is there again. The talent all the way around. The O-line looks to be stacked. I wanted to say Texas at the very beginning of the year. They've had some huge injury concerns in their camp. They lost 2 running backs. They got to replace 2 huge at the time Big 12 receivers in Worthy and Adonai Mitchell. They lost a lot of guys on defense. I'm a huge believer in Quinn Ewers. I love the quarterback. I'm just not buying into Texas quite this year. I think they'll be a playoff team, but I think Georgia's going to be the better team, and also Alabama. Collin, no one really knows what they're going to get at Alabama because of no more Nick Saban. I want to get your take on here, but Milroe is an outstanding athlete. Throwing the ball, he got a lot better. It's still kind of up and down with him. We know what Alabama brings in terms of the brand and the quality of players. We just don't know the product they're going to put out there.
Yeah, especially under first year out of Washington head coach Kalen DeBoer.
Yeah, we know what he did at Washington, though. I mean, he brought Washington from nowhere to relevance into the championship game, right? I still can't get over that game because Penix Jr. could not miss a throw by a centimeter. I mean, that might have been the greatest just performance I've seen in a long time out of just a quarterback throwing the ball. I mean, the dude couldn't miss. But, yeah, I just think Georgia's going to be too much to handle this year.
And finally, the last conference, the Sun Belt Conference. Who do you got, Luke?
So this is tough because they lost a quarterback, as you mentioned, TJ Finley, to Western Kentucky. I still roll with Texas State. GJ Kinney is one of the best coaches, I think, in the nation. I think he's waiting for that big-time offer to go somewhere that next level, whether if it's in the state of Texas. I know there are talks with him, and a lot of Baylor guys really want to see him go to there. They're kind of sick of Aranda. I know a lot of people in the LSU circles, Collin, that Brian Kelly is kind of pushing himself out. He's kind of on the hot seat there, taking over from Coach O. I think Texas State has a really good roster. I think they return a lot. It hurts me to say this because we will beat them.
Yeah.
There in NRG, I think, but I'm gonna roll with them.
I'm gonna roll with the Appalachian State Mountaineers. They kind of had a weird year last year. James Madison, obviously, just I don't think they're gonna be able to repeat, especially since they lost their head coach. Excuse me. But I'm gonna go with the Mountaineers to grab that Sun Belt title, but yeah, and that will do it for the preview podcast. Luke, you got any final thoughts?
Just a shot in the dark national champion. Who you got?
Ohio State.
Okay. It's very washed of me. I think Georgia's going to be too much to handle this year. Okay, who's your pick of all the non-champions? Who would be the pick to go the farthest? And of course, it depends on also, the bracket of whatever comes out. But just give me a shot in the dark here.
Oregon, because I feel like they're still going to be in there as an at-large bid. I didn't pick them to win the Big Ten, but if they do get in there as an at-large bid and they do have a really good season, better than I'm predicting, then I think they can make it to the championship game.
Okay. Yeah, I'll go with Penn State in that one.
Okay. But yeah, Luke, that wraps up a very long preview podcast, but obviously a lot to talk about. They won't be as long going into the season. It's gonna be strict. It's gonna be strict by the book most of the time. But yeah, man, this is a long week, Luke. This is the longest week of our lives. It feels like. but I'm finally ready to get started. And we started doing this in mid-June, and we're up to 91 subscribers now at the time of recording, and we're closing in on 100. Can we possibly get to 100 before that 6 p.m. kickoff for Sam Houston versus Rice? Never know.
Next time we're going to be talking to each other, college football will be going on. Sam Houston will be playing. They'll be after they play.
Yeah.
So super excited. This is it. It's what we've been waiting for. It's what we've been gearing up to for a long time, and here we are.
Yeah. Well, that'll wrap things up here for the Sam Houston versus Rice preview podcast. That's Luke Scott. I'm Collin Neill, and I'm gonna now go sit down and relax because my throat is drier than the damn desert. So, but with it all said and done, Luke, let's go beat Rice, and hey, let's get that hashtag Pack Bowers going, building up to the Hawaii game. I'll be there at the Rice game. I'll be there for Hawaii. I'll be there for the games that I can be. Luke, I know you'll try to be at a few games, but guys, if you're a Sam Houston fan, if you're a Sam Houston alum, Sam Houston student, be out there if you can, especially at Bowers Stadium. Pack Bowers Stadium. And yeah, Luke, I'm ready to wrap things up. If you got anything else to say.
Eat 'em up, cats. That's all I got to say.
Eat 'em up, cats. Subscribe today for all the Bearcat talk. This has been Sam Houston Sports Talk. Y'all have a good one. And as he said, eat 'em up, cats.
Eat 'em up.